call roll.
Dr. Ramona Becker.
Here.
Guy McDonald.
Here.
Betty Martine.
Here.
Diane Wynn.
Here.
We have a quorum, Mayor.
Wonderful, thank you. And I want to welcome everybody to the November 7th regularly scheduled meeting of your Bel Aire City Council. We've got a pretty full agenda this evening, but we'll begin this meeting like we do all of our meetings with a moment of silent prayer. Amen. Now, please rise and join us in the saying of the Pledge of Allegiance to the American flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The first thing to come before council this evening is the consent agenda, and that just simply consists of the minutes of the October 17th, 2017 City Council meeting. Is there a motion to approve or any questions?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as listed and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
First and second, any questions or comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item 7 is discussion and approval of appropriations ordinance 17-21. This is in the amount of $406,411.84. For that, we had $63,000 of it was for CCUA sewer debt, and $123,000 of this was for the CCUA water operations. We also had the $30,000, for monthly trash in there, so you can see why that may be just a bit higher than it normally is.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I make a motion to approve appropriations ordinance 17-21.
Second.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I have just one question. I brought up an item last meeting about appropriations. Can we talk about that after we take the vote, or?
Yeah. Sure. Because it's about a previous appropriations. Yeah, absolutely.
Right, and then just find out
Absolutely.
what they found out about it. Sorry.
Okay. Any other questions or comments before we call for the vote? Again, this is about appropriations ordinance 17-21. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And with that,
Okay, at the last meeting, I questioned an item on there regarding a domain name for $258, I believe. And Ty looked like I had hit him. And so I asked that they find out about that, because most domain names go for about $10, and domain names have nothing to do with security or anything like that. They're just a name of a website, or like you putting numbers on your house so people can find it. So did you find anything out?
Yes, I talked to Paul with OneSource, who handles all of our IT stuff, and asked him if he had did it. He said no, it wasn't him. And so what it was is that it was a domain name for our Sunflower Commerce Park. And he was saying that there's several different places you can buy those or re-up them, and they vary in cost. And he said that it looks like that the staff person that purchased the domain name or re-upped it for, I think it was for 5 years, paid more than what should have been paid. It's, because like you said, he said he can usually get them for, you know, 5-year for $50 or $100, something like
Yeah.
that. And so he said that he would be happy to, even though he handles our IT, even things like that with our websites and domain name, he said he'd be happy to help us with that. So I ask staff that if they have anything, even if it's not specifically computers or things, but it's related to internet and things, to go ahead and run those through Paul to make sure that, you know, we're getting them at the right place or the right price and things like that. And so, yep, that's how we handle that.
Okay, and it was for 5 years then,
Yeah.
that's the other thing, because
Yeah.
the most I've ever paid for a domain name was, I think, $35, and that was for 3 years, and I paid an extra few dollars. You can also put them to where they're not open to the public. In other words, I can go on and, you know, if I've got a domain name, I can find out who owns it, when it's going to be up, and all kinds of things. And so we have one that we didn't necessarily want that information out. So it's not as bad as I thought it was, because $258 for 1 year was,
Yeah. But he did say that he could, you know, it's just, you just have to know where to go to get them for the right prices and stuff, so.
yeah.
Yep.
So is that somebody on our staff or their staff?
No, our staff. Yeah, it's just re-upping the Sunflower Commerce Park website domain name is what it was, and it was up, so they went to a site that does it. So, yep.
Any other questions or discussion on that?
No, no, just thank you for
You bet.
chasing that down, because it was a little bit too much,
Yeah.
but not quite what I thought.
That, we're going to move into city requested appearances, and Jeff Best is here to give us a presentation again on the Park Master Plan. And this is something we've been talking about, oh golly, for a number of months, and I know you've come to a couple of different workshops and listened to council have different input here and there. So I appreciate you being here, and we'll look forward. And again, just remind everybody, this is something we're looking at doing in steps and phases. So we'll go and let you go.
Well, good evening. It's nice to see everybody again. This has been a little bit of a process. I think we started really around the first of the year with information gathered from the WSU survey, moved into an open house, then went through a design process, most of which you were involved with because I came and saw you repeatedly, and I think you almost got tired of seeing me after a while. But that the last meeting we were at, we presented that final master plan concept, which you all, I think, approved at that point in time, knowing that this was going to be a phased project in time. But we also talked about how we were going to put this out to the public, and what we did in between the last time we met and this time is we prepared a model or a computer model of the entire project, and then we did a fly-through video, and that's what you're going to see tonight. It's about 4.5 minutes long, and what we anticipate is that would be pushed out, you know, through the social media, probably website and other ways, to show the community what they can expect in the future. Afterwards, you can ask me any kinds of questions, or we can talk about any changes you may want to see to the video before we move ahead with it. happy we put music in the background because it gets really boring without the music. But it is a little better than planned graphics that you've seen last time. It does, I think, really give life to that park. The other thing that we really talked a lot about is since we've modeled it now, it really becomes a good tool for marketing those parcels around the park as well in the future. And I was telling Ty, since we do have that model, we can actually help basically model those proposed developments when they come into play if everybody wanted to see how those interacted with the park and each other. It's a pretty simple step that we could move forward with. Any questions, comments, concerns, critiques?
Well, I just want to say that, we've looked at it on paper and how much nicer it is and different, exactly like what you just said. I was impressed. I know this isn't much to do with the park, but more with just the technology now. My goodness, did I really see fish swimming in the pond in there? And to hear the voices and the laughter and the two-way traffic and the birds. And I like how 53rd was paved and looking nice, and one shot of that too. So with that, any comments or?
I have some questions. Which side of City Hall is that? Is this the east side of City Hall?
Yeah, to the north and east. Yep.
North and east, okay. I noticed that this would be primarily a summertime park, but also could be used in the fall in nice weather. I noticed the chimney and the fireplace, and tell me your thoughts about the chimney and the fireplace, particularly in the summertime. That's one question. I have a few more.
It depends on how you want to use it. The fire pits that are generally in public, we'd seal them up so you can't actually get to the fire. You basically use like fiberglass or something to that effect.
Sure.
You can put it on timer, and you can have full control over the fire itself. The smoke, you're probably not going to get a lot of smoke from a gas fire, but you know what I mean.
You got a chimney, so it's going to work. But I guess my question revolved about how important is that for use in the summertime when it's...
Oh, it probably isn't. And quite frankly, if we got into final design work and we determined at that point in time that we didn't want to spend the money on a fireplace per se, that doesn't even have to be included in the final.
All right. That's good. Second question would be, I noticed there were lots of places that were stands with roofs over them. And this council has talked about in the future providing a place where people could grow their produce and then come to this area and sell it. Would that be appropriate? Would that be an appropriate use for those areas that had, we'll say, roofs over them?
I think
that looked a little bit sketchy.
I think the main shelter at the very north and east end, the larger structure where the fireplace was, I think that could be used for some of that work, or some of the stands or setup. The smaller ones would be mostly for seating, like around the fountain, and then the other one was adjacent to that parking, that drive lane and parking. That was on the west side.
Okay, so if the development of we'll say a garden spot where people could sell produce developed after the park was established, some of the newer adjacent buildings or pieces of land could be designed more for the selling of produce if it was a successful venture.
I think there's a couple places we could look at doing something like that where you would back in or pull in. Basically, it's a shed structure, more or less, is what you're talking about. And we've done something like that before for markets. You could look at where the circular area was, which we talked about being phase one, directly across the street. I think you could look at that area on the outside most. Also, that drive that goes up towards the northeast that had parking along the one side. I think actually those two parking strips in there actually lend themselves to that kind of a structure pretty well too.
Okay.
But it's something we could talk about once in the final design if that's something we wanted to do.
I'm glad to hear that because we don't know what the future holds. The garden thing just may fall apart. Okay. Well, I'm happy you answered my questions. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I was wondering if maybe in January or February that we can hold a town hall meeting and have the gentleman come and explain the first step to the residents that came to the town hall meeting, if that not advisable?
I think that's part of the plan. We've talked about, we had the survey, that's, one of many steps, and this, and yeah, certainly we'll make sure we have public meetings, we'll do social media, we'll do traditional media, and, you know, we can use the water bill too.
Right.
So-
And we can also pull still images out of this, if you want to include it in mail out, or something like that.
Well, I was just thinking the first phase, if we let them, they could see the whole thing, but make sure that they know that this is going to be done in phases so that
Right.
they don't panic.
And that's probably kind of why I said at the beginning, because I think all of us kind of went, okay, this is great, but, so, yeah, definitely take our steps with it. Any other questions or comments?
I'd just like to say, I'm glad to see the natural border around the pond. That's much more attractive than when people used to use riprap. I think that stuff is really ugly, and this is so much nicer. So I like that part, and I agree with Councilmember Martine that we really need to get more public input before we get really committing money to something like this, you know. But I think that you've done a beautiful design. I love that. I'd love to see it out here in front of City Hall.
So would I.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
I appreciate you being here.
You bet.
And I'm sure we'll see you again soon.
Yes.
Okay, with that, we're going to move into proclamations. I have two of them that are before me this evening. Is there anybody here representing the Diabetes Association or the Veterans Day proclamation? Not, I'm going to go ahead and read them here from the bench. The first one is American Diabetes Month in November of 2017. Whereas in the United States, nearly 24 million people, including 150,000 right here in Kansas, have diabetes, a serious disease with potentially life-threatening complications such as heart disease, stroke, blindness, kidney disease, and amputation. And whereas an additional 57 million people in the United States are at risk for developing type 2 diabetes. And whereas 1 out of every 3 children born today will face a future of diabetes if current trends continue. Excuse me. And whereas an increase in community awareness is necessary to put a stop to the diabetes epidemic. Therefore, I, David Austin, Mayor, do hereby proclaim November as American Diabetes Month in the city of Bel Aire, and I call upon all citizens, community agencies, religious organizations, medical facilities, and businesses to join the American Diabetes Association's movement to confront, fight, and most importantly, stop diabetes. Excuse me. I will pass that down. Second proclamation I have is for Veterans Day, which is coming up. Whereas Veterans Day has its origins in the November 11th, 1918, which brought World War I to a conclusion. And whereas the Allied victory in World War I affirmed the strength of great nations acting together for high purposes. And whereas the people of the United States caused through their elected representatives the designation of November 11th as a federal legal holiday, which in 1954 became officially known as Veterans Day. And whereas Veterans Day continues to be celebrated and commemorated with solemn observances in honor of all Americans who have served their country in times of war and conflict. And whereas the courage, honor, sacrifice, and dedication which veterans of the United States Armed Forces have displayed in the cause of justice, freedom, and democracy are most worthy of recognition now. Therefore, I, David Austin, Mayor, do hereby call upon all citizens to commend America's veterans and observe with solemn pride November 11th, 2017 to be celebrated as Veterans Day. Excuse me. With that, I'll open it up to citizens' concerns. If there's anyone in the audience wishing to address council this evening. Seeing none, we will move on to reports. And I think we'll start with Councilmember McDonald this evening.
Mr. Mayor, I have no report, but I do have an observation that at least another member of council has had what happened to me happen to her. I have had signs, political signs, taken down and just moved away. I put a sign last week at 45th and Hillcrest in a legal spot, and today it's not there. And on 45th Street, I had some other signs. Now, I know that it's virtually impossible to catch somebody taking those signs. But I just thought I'd mention it, that it's not a proper activity for citizens to engage in, even though they may favor one candidate over another. Such activity is simple theft. And that's the end of my comments, Mr. Lair.
Becker?
Well, I wanted to again thank the Chamber of Commerce and the Senior Club for sponsoring forums for the candidates. I think that's a wonderful thing for them to do for our city, so that everybody can get out and learn a little bit more about who's running for office. I thought both of the forums were very revealing and good, and I enjoyed both of them. And I just want to say that I think it's really good for the city of Bel Aire that even though we have 8 candidates running, the non-incumbents who are running really didn't have a whole lot to complain about for the city. We've had 4 years of phenomenal growth for our city and much success, and a whole lot of things we can be proud of, being the safest city in Kansas. We've built up our police department. We've bought good vehicles, new vehicles. We have the best ones in the county now. They're all outfitted with computers like they need to be. I think we were one of the first ones to get body cameras for all of our police officers here in town. And there's just a lot of good things going on here in the city of Bel Aire. And I think when you have candidates running who really can't find a whole lot to complain about as far as the success of the city, I think that we can all be very proud of that. And I just want to say, no matter what happens with the election results tonight, I am so proud to be a member of this council, because I think we've made a lot of progress. And our citizens and taxpayers can really be happy about that. And that is with the help of our excellent staff. And so I'd like to thank the staff too, because none of this would have been possible without all your hard work. So that's all I have to say.
I had the pleasure today of having lunch with Miss Jackie Kelly. A friend of mine had actually invited her to join us at the Women's Leadership Association, and I always like to be able to compliment our employees. I gave Ann a shout out here a few weeks back. But I was so proud of Jackie when she stood up, because all guests got to stand up and say their name and what you do. And she stood up, and I am the city attorney for Bel Aire, and we're north and east of Wichita, and you can come up and buy land for new businesses. And I went, well, holy smoke, we have a marketing
I like it.
person on staff and didn't know it.
Yeah.
So. Not only was it fun, but, you know, I enjoy working with Jackie very much. And that's all I have.
That's where Martine.
Well, about the only thing I have is I hope the employees have a wonderful Friday off for Veterans Day, and thank all the veterans for serving their past years and present.
Alrighty, and so yeah, and with that, I was gonna, because I just read the proclamation with November 11th, but it is November 10th, so Friday, and City Hall will be closed that day. Alrighty, so do want people to know about that. Have nothing formal to report tonight. Actually, we have one item. The CCUA board, we normally meet the 4th Thursday of each month. At our last meeting, it was decided we're going to, because the 4th Thursday of this month happens to be Thanksgiving, and we didn't think we should all meet at 4:30 and discuss sewer and water. So we have moved that meeting back to the 30th. So the CCUA meeting will take place there on the 30th. And I'm just going to respond to what Councilmember McDonald brought up, because yeah, I too have had a number of signs taken. I think when I drove in today, I noticed that Rock Road and 45th is pretty much bare. It was not at 3 o'clock today.
I can address that when you're finished.
Okay, yeah, but I just, so if anybody out there has taken them, yeah, it is theft, and I would ask you to return them, because these candidates, I mean, those aren't cheap. So, yeah, some do get damaged, some do, but, for them to be stolen, yeah, that's a lot of money for candidates' pockets. But anyway.
Mr. Mayor, I've
Yeah.
been advised by authority that 45th and Rock on all four corners is Wichita, Kansas, going back several feet. So those signs that were placed within that boundary were taken by the city of Wichita, and so they have the signs. And I don't know whether they will relinquish them or not, but that whole corner, four sides, is Wichita, Kansas.
Well, I'd
Mr.
just like
Mayor?
to say, don't they have anything better to do in Wichita?
Because they were there at like 2:30, 3 o'clock. I came by here to vote, and it was interesting. Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
What difference would that make? They come out here and put their signs.
I'm simply stating the facts as I was advised, that's Wichita, and they have a right to do what they want. I think it's picayune, but if that's what they want to do,
Well, at
they
least
have the
we're
right to
nicer
do
to
so.
them than they are to us then. Because I've seen several signs out here that belonged to people running in Wichita. So,
With that, we will move on to our city attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just continuing the sign conversation, we have talked to Wichita. There was an initial round of signs that were removed by Wichita from that intersection of 45th and Rock. They do own the right-of-way. Obviously, they don't own that area that's being cleared, but that right-of-way right on the edge of that corner, they own it. And so they did say that they removed those signs. And I asked them, because our city's ordinance allows signs and theirs doesn't, and understanding that this is the first year for a lot of this, if they would consider giving back the signs. And they said they'd get back to me. However, I'm concerned because their policy is after Election Day, the signs are trash. So I don't know that at this point they will give them back. But I think it was across the board. They weren't, at that intersection, they weren't picking and choosing any signs. They just took everything. And then they came back for another round, it sounds like after 3 o'clock today, and cleared the intersection. So that's just the nature of that boundary line.
Must have a lot of spare time and spare people.
Do they have volunteers that
They
do
do
that?
have a, they did say that they have a group, a delegation, who volunteers to maintain this kind of thing. So I don't know who makes up that group, and
Gosh,
but yeah.
there's
So-
other things to volunteer for that might be a little bit more beneficial.
Right, right. So, and that just kind of, later on in the agenda, you're going to see our de-annexation, and you might say, well, why are you cutting out that northwest corner? Because of things like this, where I think it was important to tie to make sure that our monuments and our boundaries are more easily understood by a resident driving by. And so maybe down the road, that might be something you consider, if Wichita would ever give that corner with our monument on it that seems like it's in Bel Aire, that would be helpful, but as of now belongs to Wichita. Another item I wanted to report on is just the League is now collecting, the League of Kansas Municipalities is collecting feedback on issues that are of concern to cities. And one topic that they asked us for feedback on, and we were able to respond, was bonds and how cities are using bonds, because there's some federal legislation that's attempting to really reduce a city's ability to refinance with bonds or do other things with bonds. And so they asked for cities to weigh in, and we were able to give our opinion on that. Since we use them, we don't want those to be eliminated. So that's all that I have, unless someone has questions for me. Thank you.
Questions? No. City manager?
Thank you, Mayor. As you mentioned, city offices will be closed this Friday for Veterans Day. Did want to mention, because the Lions are great supporters of the city, that they are having their Taste of Italy this Saturday. So, Mr. McDonald, do you have some specifics you could share?
No, I do not, because I have not been very active this past year because
okay.
for various reasons. I'm a member, but I haven't been active. I plan to be there on
Okay.
Saturday, and I'll be, I think, making the sauce.
Okay.
But anyway,
Yes, it's
I
Mr.
can't tell you any more than that, I'm sorry.
Okay, so it's Saturday from 4 to 7, I believe, at the, what's the church over there that you
It's
meet?
Gospel Assembly
Gospel
Church
Assembly.
on North Oliver.
On North Oliver. So, like I said, I just wanted to mention that because they do a lot for the city. And I think it's Mr. McDonald's recipe, that Italian recipe that they use.
Yes, it is.
So it's
my
really
family's
good.
recipes.
So, and then a little bit, Community Cleanup Day was last Friday, or last Saturday morning. I saw the trucks out. Hope everything got picked up. They did mention that some people had put some things in their trash barrel or the trash can that didn't get picked up, and they apologized for that. They said just simply put it out this week. Mine was today. Different people have different days. Just put it out and they'll pick it up. So no problem there. And then the last thing I wanted to mention, which is a positive, Standard & Poor's bond rating for the city, with what Adam and Kevin are going to be talking about on our financing and temp notes and stuff like that. Our bond rating, obviously, the better it is, the better interest rate we get, because the more of a steady investment people see in the city of Bel Aire. And we, again, were rated an A+ bond, awarded A+ bond rating from S&P. Just to give you an idea of where we rate, you've got A+, then AA-, AA, and then up to AAA. And the state of Kansas is an AA-. So we are one step below the state of Kansas. So I don't know if that's good for us. I don't know if it's good for the state, but anyway, that helps us with our interest rates, and they're going to tell you, I think we've got some really good interest rates again. So that's a very positive, our bond ratings. That's all I have, Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, I have some further comments about Taste of Italy. It occurred to me while listening to Mr. Lasher that my name is MacDonald, which is Scot-Irish, and people would be wondering how a Scot-Irish Italian recipe would taste. I should tell you that from the time I was 15 till I was 25, I was raised by an aunt and uncle prior to that time. Then I went to live with my mother, who married an Italian. I was first generation. As a matter of fact, his sister was born in Italy. And so this is a true Southern Italian recipe from the boot of Italy. There is nothing Irish about it. It is authentic, and I hope those people who listen to this will come to see, if they haven't come before, come and taste the food, because everyone who has in the past come has said favorable things about the Taste of Italy event. And of course, all the money that is raised by the Lions goes back into, all the profit goes back into the local community. There is not 1 cent spent for administration. Everything goes back to the community. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
You can do takeout from there, too.
Yes, you're very correct. Thank you very much.
That's exactly what I was going to say, and everything is delicious. They have delicious desserts, and the whole thing is just very nice. And it's a good community event. Get to see a lot of people, so I encourage everybody to go.
Okay. We will move on to ordinances, resolutions, and final actions. The first thing is an ordinance authorizing and providing, this is for the issuance of GL bonds. This is Series 2017A. And what's happening is we complete the permanent financing for a number of projects. These bonds were sold on the open market. That happened today. And Kevin is here, Kevin Cowan with Gilmore and Bell. And Adam Pope, who is with Columbia Capital. They're here to discuss the bids as well as the ordinance and resolution that does require action tonight.
Mr. Mayor, Council, thanks for having us here. Adam Pope from Columbia Capital Management, and we are the city's financial advisor. And as the mayor mentioned, today we took bids for both bonds and temporary notes and provided a brief handout that summarizes the results of the sale of both the bonds and the notes. To start with the bonds, a total of $5,545,000. We received 5 bids, which is the most interest we've had since Columbia has been working with the city, so that was a great result. As you can see, Robert W. Baird was the winning bid at a true interest cost of 2.778%. The temporary notes, we sold 2 series of notes. We sold them together, so they had to bid on both and a blended rate. We had 4 bids there, which is also a great result. Commerce Bank was the winner at a combined rate of 1.567%. All in all, a great result. You can see kind of the range of the bids, at least for the bonds. It ranged from 2.778 down to 2.924. So, again, as we believe as a firm, it shows the benefit of doing this as a competitive sale, because you can see there is a range of options of what they thought the appropriate rate was, and when you do a competitive sale, you get it's a low man win, so it's kind of the best you could hope for. Other than that, happy to answer any questions, but all in all, a great result for the city, and again, just very happy to get the chance to work with the city.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Could you tell us the maturity date for the bonds and
Sure.
the length of time for the temporary notes before we?
Yeah. So the bonds it's a 20-year.
That's a what?
20 years.
20 years.
Yeah, and then the notes, the larger series, the 2017B, those will be a 3-year note, so it'll be 2020. And then the smaller series will mature January 1 of 2019.
Will the notes be paid off completely, or will we look to put them into bonds?
So the smaller series will be paid off at the time. So there was an agreement with the city and Bootsy, which is out at the Commerce Park, I believe, and they have one more payment that'll come in, and so that will be used to pay off those notes. And then, we will bond the 2.13 million will be bonded in 2020.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
And A and B do go together, but we'll need to vote on them.
Yeah, B and C.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry, no, that's very
B and C, I'm
confusing.
kind of jumping ahead there, but but the first thing here is for A, which again is the permanent financing. So I would entertain a motion on that, I think, at this time.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I'm making a motion to approve an ordinance authorizing and providing for the issuance of general obligation bonds, Series 2017A, of the city of Bel Aire, Kansas, providing for the levy and collection of an annual tax for the purpose of paying the principal of and interest on said bonds as they become due, authorizing certain other documents and actions in connection therewith, and making certain covenants with respect thereto, and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
First and second, any questions or comments? The fact that it is an ordinance, it does call for a roll call vote. Dr. Becker?
Aye.
Guy McDonald?
Aye.
Betty Martine?
Aye.
Diane Nguyen?
Aye.
And it passes. Okay. So next, now we're talking kind of the tip note series. Here are the B and C resolutions. This is included in the GO bond that was just issued tonight. That was a temporary note, so monies for the project under construction or that they're going to start after the first of the year. Is that correct? So again, we'll let you talk a little bit more about those two things.
Yeah, so sure. So the temporary notes, like I mentioned, the start with the smaller series, the 2017C. This is temporary renewal notes. So, like I mentioned, there was this is the project with Bootsy out at the Commerce Park, and so we're rolling this small part of it that's left to be paid off when their payment comes in next year. And then the larger note, the 2.13 million, is for various projects. I believe it's the engineering and design of the Woodlawn paving project, and I think one of the Rock Springs is included, and I can't remember the other project now off the top of my head. There's so many of them with the city with this issue. And so yeah, several, water, sewer, paving, sidewalks, things like that for two of the developments.
So there are both those resolutions in front of us. Are there any questions or comments? I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve a resolution prescribing the form and details of and authorizing and directing the sale and delivery of general obligation bonds, Series 2017A of the City of Bel Aire, Kansas, previously authorized by ordinance number 625 of the issuer, making certain covenants and agreements to provide for the payment and security thereof, and authorizing certain other documents and actions connected therewith, and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
First and second. Questions or comments here on item B? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. I would entertain a motion on item C.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes. Mr. Irwin?
I'd like to make a motion to approve a resolution authorizing and directing the issuance, sale, and delivery of general obligation temporary notes, Series 2017B, and general obligation temporary renewal notes, Series 2017C of the City of Bel Aire, Kansas, providing for the levy and collection of an annual tax if necessary for the purpose of paying the principal and interest of said notes as they become due, making certain covenants and agreements to provide for the payment and security thereof, and authorizing certain other documents and actions connected therewith, and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
First and second. Questions or comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Mr. Mayor, I have a question for the city manager. It states in this last approved provision that it provides for the levy and collection of an annual tax if necessary. Mr. Lasher, do you think an annual tax will be necessary from your knowledge of the budget of the city?
No, all the bonds that we issue have that type of wording in them, and that's what gets us the best rate, is the interest rates, because the borrowers know that if special assessments don't come in, the city will pay those special assessments until we collect the special assessments back. So that's why that wording's there. Like I said, it does come into play, for example, at Tierra Verde. They're not paying special assessments, so the city is paying them, and that's why we have a vested interest in getting ownership of those lots, or making sure that they sell so that we can recoup that special assessment money. And then as far as the levying of special taxes, the one that it may play into a little bit would be the Woodlawn engineering. But again, you have the ability to levy taxes, so the goal of that whole project is to borrow the money and then pay it out of our general fund. But if council wanted to, add additional road improvements so that we had that debt service we had to pay plus some other money, then you could levy, a tax to bring in additional funds.
I asked that question because I'm sure that there'll be some people who are watching and who will watch in the future or listening who would say, oh, collection of taxes, additional tax. Yeah, so I wanted to have that explained. Thank you very much for the explanation.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Council. Yeah.
All right. We're going to keep talking about financing here. So, item D, Epic Sports, they've completed their financing. They're ready for the IRB to be issued. That requires an ordinance to be approved. And as with all of our IRBs, the city is not responsible for any of the debt service. or the IRB or finances of the company. So I want to make sure we point that out. We simply act as the conduit here. And Kevin, I'm going to let you explain that because you probably did a lot better than I just did.
I'm not sure I can, but yes, at the outset, and you've been through this before, industrial revenue bonds, you're acting as a conduit and providing the financing for a private project, and there are certain state law incentives that make that advantageous to the company. And by law, and I probably mentioned this to you before, but I'll say it again, by law, the city's credit cannot secure industrial revenue bonds. There can be no levy of taxes. It is in the statutes, and then we include it in all of the bond documents and on the bond certificate itself. So it's clear to a bondholder, they're truly just looking to the credit of the underlying company. And in this case, it's Epic Sports. And if you've been out near the Commerce Park, you can see that this project is virtually complete. And so the time is right for these bonds to be issued as the permanent financing. This project does qualify for property tax abatement, and that goes into the timing as well, that under our state law, the property tax abatement will begin in the calendar year following the year in which the bonds are issued. So to the company, it was important to get this done in this calendar year because that entire building would otherwise be taxable property as of January 1 next year. And this will allow them to start that property tax abatement. So that's really the reason we're here now instead of some other time. Intrust Bank is purchasing the bonds, and as the mayor mentioned, this ordinance approves the various bond documents that are necessary to accomplish that. And if you have any specific questions about them, I'd be happy to address them, but it is very similar to some of the other industrial revenue bonds that have been done in the Commerce Park.
Any questions for Mr. Powell? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to approve an ordinance authorizing the city of Bel Aire, Kansas to issue its taxable industrial revenue bonds, Series 2017, Epic Real Estate Development Number 2, LLC, for the purpose of the acquisition, construction, and equipping of a commercial office, warehouse, and distribution facility, and authorizing certain other documents and actions in connection therewith, and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
First and second, questions or comments? It is an ordinance again, so roll call. Dr. Becker?
Aye.
Guy McDonald?
Aye.
Betty Martine?
Aye.
Diane Nguyen?
Aye.
And it passes, okay. Thank you so much. Okay, next we're going to talk about, appreciate you being here on that, but we'll move on to the change order. This is with Meads Construction. We're talking Phase 2 in Rock Springs, second edition. They've installed the water and the sewer mains. However, the final grading has not been complete and additional drainage work is ongoing. This is for the installation of the stormwater system and the streets. The city engineer requested that Meads fence off the meter cans so they will know, so they're not going to be damaged, and then come back after final dirt work to grade around those meters. So that was happening there. But the cost for this change order is $7,000. The money is going to come from the project funds and are going to be included in the special assessments, so from the developer there.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve the change order with Mees Construction in the amount of $7,000 and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
First and second, any questions or comments?
Yes, I just wondered when I read about this, has there already been damage done?
Not in this location, but we have had this come up before. And what they try to do is have the water and sewer go in, after the final grading, but sometimes when they're scheduling with the grading in the streets and, the water and sewer can go in earlier and things like that. So in situations where we get the water and sewer in first before the final grading and the stormwater streets are in, they've installed those, and then they come out to do that grading and hit them and break them, and they're not cheap. And so, in this situation, requested that Meese do that, and that's a not to exceed amount is what that is. So if it costs less, they'll charge us less, but that way it protects the damage of those meter cans that could happen.
So do we just wait to see the timing on this or should, it seems like if that's a problem, maybe it should automatically be put in there, but are we just waiting to see if the timing might necessitate this?
Yes, so they've already been installed, and so she wanted them to get, basically, they put that rubber fencing up around them, and then they'll go back and grade them out. So, yeah, they're already in, and then she knows that they're going to be coming back with the stormwater grading, and so she didn't want them to get hit.
Okay, thank you.
Have first and second. Any other questions, comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next, talking about the HVAC replacement over there at the rec center. The rec center has 5 HVAC units that, and HVAC of course heats and cools the building. One unit was replaced 5 years ago, leaving the remaining 4 that are now 23 years old. As you might imagine, 23 years, they're kind of outlived their life expectancy and are starting to fail, specifically with the heating units are kind of starting to go out. To replace one heating unit is $2,000 each. The AC condensers, they also run about $2,000 each. So the staff knew this expense was coming, and in our CIP plan included that the $60,000 in the budget for that. So Brian contacted several companies and received bids from 3 businesses. They're in our packet here. The low bid was from Central Mechanical Wichita, I beg your pardon. Staff's comfortable with that low bid, which is below, quite a bit below what was actually included in the CIP plan. So, and the other thing that's nice, replacing something that's 23 years old, the units are going to be a lot more efficient and have a larger capacity than what was installed in 1994.
Will these be train units, or will they be some other brand?
I don't remember the manufacturer of those.
Doesn't say.
And it doesn't say in the report.
Yeah, it says similar, or train HVAC units with similar updated train units.
Yeah.
So I guess everybody was, maybe I didn't think the last word of that report.
So they are going to be the train units then?
Yes.
I'm going to tell you just from personal experience, I just replaced the HVAC system in our house this spring and with the train, and I was after doing quite a bit of researching consumer reports and other things, so happy to hear that.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
I have a question. What kind of warranty or guarantee comes with these units? Does anybody know?
I don't know, but we can find out. I'm sure there is, because it seems like typically in a home, there's like 5 years, and then on parts, there's another certain amount of
Understand.
time.
I didn't know if there was anything
Yeah.
different about providing those units for a city rather than an individual.
Yeah, commercial customer, yeah, that I don't know, but I'll check and make sure that there's
Okay.
some type of.
Like I said, we do have the bids in front of us, and any other questions or an action you guys want to take?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I would like to make the motion to accept the quote from Commercial Mechanical Wichita at the cost of $24,690 to replace 4 HVAC units at the rec center and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
I have a first and a second. I just want to make sure, I think you said commercial mechanical, so just, it's central mechanical, Wichita, does that even necessarily mean?
Yeah,
Commercial,
it's,
man. It's
Commercial.
commercial.
It says central mechanical here.
the first,
so I don't-
well, the first agenda that was in your packet said, I think it said commercial, but Brian stated that it was central.
Okay. Yeah,
So I had to
I'm
make a
off
change. So if you have a second agenda, an older agenda, or the newer agenda, it's central. So-
Okay. So
Yeah.
we're okay with that bid anyway? Or the-
Yes, for
I
24.
just want to make sure, so.
Yep.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, pardon. And so, item G, we're talking Rock Springs Phase 5. Now, the developer is moving forward with this phase over there at Rock Spring, and financing has been acquired. They did that via the temp note issued earlier in the meeting. Ruggles and Bohm designed the mains and sent the plans out to several businesses, and 6 of those companies actually responded, with Mees Construction being the low bid at $161,151. This bid does come in under the engineer's estimate, which was $188,000. So about 20, quite a bit under than that. So, and staff is very comfortable with Mees completing the work, as they've done several other projects here in Bel Aire in the past.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I have some comments to make about these bids. We have several bids in the mid $180,000 mark. They were, in my opinion, bids that were just given, but they really weren't interested in doing the job. It seems to me that Dooling Construction at 170, McCullough Excavation at 161, Mees Construction at 161 really want to do the job, and they were very competitive bids. And I hope that the city recognizes that and keeps that in the back of their mind. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Observation, any other questions? Not, I would certainly entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I make a motion to accept the bid from Mees Construction at a cost of $161,151 and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
Have first and second. Questions or comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign. All right, next, item H is our senior center funding for next year. The city submitted a request to increase funding for the senior center in 2018. That went to the Sedgwick County Department on Aging. Unfortunately, they did not grant any request for additional funding of any senior centers. So as a result, the city is going to receive the same amount in 2017, which is $18,000. This is going to mean that the 2018 budget for the senior center is going to remain at the 2017 funding. I do want to point that out. So.
Well, if nobody has anything to say about this, I will make a motion to approve the agreement for the senior center level 1 with Sedgwick County and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second. Go ahead.
First in 2 seconds. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And I should have pointed out that Yeah, so that's the grant total is $18,000, so we'll have that, okay. We're on item I, on up here. This is consideration of approving a contract for engineering services with Ruggles and Bohm. This is for construction inspection services. We're back to Rock Spring in phase 5 because all projects that install public infrastructure here in our city do require on-site inspection, and this is done through an engineering company that the city hires. So, like I said, Ruggles and Bohm actually designed the project in Rock Spring 5, so we're going to use their inspector. And the cost of the inspections, all of this is included in the financing and spread through special assessments that goes into that number for those properties. Anybody?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I would like to make a motion to approve the contract for engineering services with Ruggles and Bond, PA / Garber LLC, and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
First and second, questions or comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay. Item J, I mentioned earlier at the beginning of the meeting that our next CCUA meeting happens November 30th, and we talked about this at our last meeting, that with Peggy O'Donnell's resignation, that means she's resigned from the CCUA as well. And those bylaws require that the mayor and at least one council member from both Bel Aire and Park City be appointed to the board. So we need to have another council member be appointed, and this can be revisited after the first of the year if you'd like. But so I thought, and also since Betty's been the council alternate and she's been attending the meetings for the most part
Get
there.
to the right building.
So, but I thought she'd be a good replacement for Peggy, and that's why, like I said, this appointment would run through January.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I'll make a motion to appoint Betty Martine to fill the unexpired term of Peggy Sue O'Donnell on the CCUA board.
Second.
First and second, questions or comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign.
Can I make a comment? I'm late, but I am so glad that Betty is willing to do this, because she probably knows more about that than all the rest of us put together. So
Only
we're
till
glad.
January, then I'll go back to being an alternate.
Well, I'd like to see you stay on because you're the expert. So glad you're going to do it.
Thank you.
Our final issue to come before council tonight, this is a de-annexation of the intersection 37th and Woodlawn, something we've talked about for at least 2-3 months here. So the intersection 37th and Woodlawn, is actually owned partially by Bel Aire and partially by Wichita. Obviously, maintenance can be a nightmare there with traffic signals, street repair, sidewalks, etc. So the understanding to this point has been the city of Wichita will maintain that intersection. Staff from both of our cities have agreed it is better for one entity to actually own and maintain the intersection. Bel Aire city limits are only on the northwest corner, with Wichita on the 3 other corners. So the action before us tonight de-annexes the portion that's owned by Bel Aire, and we have to do that so that then Wichita can annex it, again, to make all this kind of flow together there. And the legal description then created by Bel Aire does allow us to keep the easements that we have utilities running through. So I do want to make sure everybody is aware of that. But so we're actually only giving up the street portion there of the intersection.
So where the outside line is, that's the bottom of the square there, That's the part that we're de-annexing, right?
The northwest corner there, yeah.
We also have, we added later on, we do own the southwest section too, and so we added that. That is a picture of the northwest corner that we own. There's a picture that also matches in your packet of the southwest corner.
Mr. Mayor, Jackie, I didn't understand the southwest corner, which you said to begin with. Could you repeat that, please?
We also own, we found out later, because typical boundary lines go to the middle of the street.
Yes.
But in this scenario, we had to go really far back to early documents, like in the 80s and such, where Bel Aire actually annexed across the entire street to some of the right-of-way on the southwest corner. So I imagine that when you got your packets, we only knew about the northwest. After more research, we found we also owned the southwest. So we're just giving up that whole, imagine the street right-of-way through the southwest corner.
So that's where Dillon's is, that
Yes.
corner there.
Yeah, we're giving up
We
that
could have
corner.
put signs over there.
But we kept the northwest corner, like the right-of-way, the unpaved right-of-way.
Uh-huh.
So our monument's there, you will be able to put signs there, and as Mayor said, they will have that easement to come in and take care of their utilities. But we
Okay,
keep
great.
that unpaved.
So that means for anybody watching and listening that it's not 3 corners that Wichita owns, it's 2 corners, and Bel Aire owns also 2 corners. And that makes a little difference, but I don't know if the city of Bel Aire wants to pay for maintenance of traffic lights and things like that. So I'll stop my comments there and let the council decide what they want to do.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Now, this just takes in, like where the traffic light is on 37th and Woodlawn.
Right, so,
It doesn't go up to the railroad track.
right, we're giving them an easement to come onto that unpaved corner where the traffic system is. They can come onto our property to do whatever they need to do to maintain that traffic light. The street right away where the traffic light is, I imagine, I haven't actually seen that traffic light, would be in their possession, because that's the
And
main
they
reason.
would pay for the correction of the lights and stuff?
Yes. And if
But
there were
we
an
still
accident,
keep where our monument is.
Yes.
On the
got it.
front of the bank.
Right. And if there were an accident, Wichita City would take care of the whole thing instead of.
But this doesn't go past 37th Street.
Correct.
Okay.
I have another question about the monument. How far in front of the monument does our boundary exist? I guess our monument is facing, what, southeast? So is it 5 feet, 10 feet, 15? Does
Our
anyone
boundary
know?
goes right to that curb, so right where that, the lip of that concrete curb, I guess, or the street.
Yeah, the street curb, it would go all the way to the street curb, so I'm gonna
Okay,
guess
so
it's
everything
probably-
back of that is Bel Aire?
Yes.
And we're not going to give any of that up? We're just giving the curb and the other?
Yeah,
Okay,
curb
thank you
and
very
street.
much, appreciate it.
And this is just to file the petition, so we'll be back asking if, once the petition is approved, for other consideration.
Do you want to make a motion on this?
Where's mine?
I just read the legal description of all the 30.74 and the 6721 feet.
Yeah, in order to keep that unpaved corner that's so valuable for use, we had to get to like a more meets and bounds legal description rather than a
Right.
simple.
Yeah. Okay, then I'll make a motion to approve a resolution authorizing the filing of a petition to exclude a portion of the intersection of 37th Street North and Woodlawn from the boundaries of the city of Bel Aire, Kansas, and calling and providing for the giving of notice of a public hearing of the petition, and authorize the mayor to sign all related documents.
Second.
First and second, any more questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Next, would like to ask for a 10-minute executive session for potential acquisition, excuse me. Cold medicine's working here tonight. Property, and to invite in the city manager and the city attorney.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
We have number 13 that says discussions and future issues.
Mm-hmm.
Could I comment relative to
Yeah.
that? We have had a lot of negative events in our country involving the killing of innocent people, and it seems that there is no place that is really safe from individuals who are intent on committing some kind of terrorist act or a heinous crime. And that could affect the city of Bel Aire. And I don't know if we have now, but if we do not, I would ask that we consider putting a button behind the desk of City Hall that contacts the police directly and silently, so that if there was some kind of incident that occurred, somebody should be able to reach a button and push it just like they do in banks. And if we don't have one, I'm going to recommend highly that we look into that matter and establish that, because I think it only enhances the security of our personnel, and I think that's important in these troubled times. Do we
Yeah,
have a button
we do
like
have
that?
one.
You
Yes,
do have
and-
one?
and-
I was unaware of it. Thank you.
And it's been used a time or two with
It has, okay.
irate citizens. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Bad times. I've talked about that, so, okay. Thank you, Mr. McDonald, for that. So, like I said, I would like to have that 10-minute executive session.
Mr. Mayor, would you
Yes.
read the entire motion, or?
I will do. Well, actually, somebody else needs to make that motion. I guess, yeah, I would ask that we go into executive session for the exclusive purpose of discussing potential acquisition of a property pursuant to the KSA 75-4319 exception for preliminary discussions relating to the acquisition of real property, and to invite in the city manager and city attorney. The meeting will be for a period of 10 minutes, and the opening meeting will resume in city council chambers afterwards.
At 8:25.
Yeah.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, last one,
Well,
Diane. We're gonna go
whatever.
on that one. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we are in executive session until 8:25.
We had a 4th of July picnic with my class,
Oh, that's
and one of the gals made them. A little clothespin, and I kept mine. I thought, well, I'll just wear that.
Council just had executive session, no binding action was taken. I'll go ahead and call the meeting back to order. Is there other business to come before council this evening?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I move the council to recess into executive session for 15 minutes to discuss employee scheduling matters to protect the privacy interest of individual employees pursuant to the non-elected personnel matters exemption under KSA 74-4319, parentheses B and parentheses, parentheses 1 and parentheses. The open meeting will resume in the city council chambers
It's
at,
8:32
we'll say,
or 8:33.
8:47, something like that. Okay.
I have a motion to go into executive session until 8:47. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are back in executive session. Council just had executive session. No binding action was taken. I go ahead and call the meeting back to order. Is there any other business to come before council this evening?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
And first and second, questions or comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned at 8:50.
Adjourned.